We always like to start out these sessions by reminding ourselves and reminding the public that this is a quite monumental juncture in our county's history. This is one of the grandest, if not the grandest, civic education projects that most of us will ever experience. It's only 200 years or so that you revamp your county government, so we should all be excited about that and realize how important today's work is. From the perspective of the Public Engagement Committee, these are really the three things that we hope to accomplish, or the reason why we host these public forums. Number one, we want to educate the community on the status of the county transition process. Again, that's why we have asked a couple of work groups to present tonight, and at all of our forums, we ask our work groups to, various work groups to come and present so that the public can remain apprised of kind of how this whole process is coming along. I'll speak on behalf of our presenters tonight. They don't have all the answers. All the work of their committees isn't done yet, but they certainly can tell you what they learned to date and what they think is important from the work that they've already done and so forth. So be gentle with them. Secondly, we certainly want to entertain questions and comments from the audience. And it's not just about us talking amongst ourselves. The real goal here is to take your feedback back to not only the respective committees that are here, but all the other committees that we are involved with as well. So we really want this to be an open, engaging kind of a session, and we encourage you to formulate your questions. And we'll come back to the Q&A section in just a moment. Just as an aside, because we are public engagement, we like to promote upcoming events and forums. You see today, the Beck Center, about halfway through there, will be at Corporate College East, July 31st, West Lake Library, August 19th, and the Stokes Library downtown, September 13th will be our final public forum. We have started to also integrate some forums focused more so on communities. July 19th, we have the East Cleveland Mayor's Forum. We have an African American Forum working with the NAACP, the Urban League, and United Pastors in Mission. On August 10th, and then August 26th, the Hispanic Public Forum at La Sagrada Familia Church. So you're welcome to attend any of those, as well as I would encourage you to keep your ears open for other upcoming activities. My co-chair would probably want me to mention the fact that next Wednesday, July 14th, along with one of our TAG members in the back there will be a candidates training session. So anyone that has pulled petition and is now officially a candidate, we want to educate them on county government and all the things that have happened with the county transition process. We have people that have actually run county governments along the same lines from other places like Allegheny County that will come and present to them. And that will conclude with a fair, if you will, where those candidates will be able to walk out and visit various tables that will have setups to show the various departments of Cuyahoga County government. And we think it's a great idea and a great way to make sure that all the candidates are very much aware of all that is Cuyahoga County government. It's quite large and complicated. So we're excited about that. So with that, I would like to jump right into our presentation. Our first presenter tonight is State Representative Michael Foley, who does great work on our behalf in Columbus. And I do know that he was not originally scheduled to be here, and I want to thank you for juggling your schedule and making the time to be with us. So if you would mind, please let us know how your work is coming along.
Thanks. My name is Mike Foley. I'm a state representative from the 14th House District, which includes West Park neighborhoods of Cleveland, Brook Park, and Parma Heights. How about that? I was asked early this winter to help coordinate on the Government Collaboration Committee. So I'm one of the co-chairs of the Government Collaboration Committee. Our job is to look at the 50-plus city governments that exist in Cuyahoga County, plus the other government that exists, CMHA, the metro parks, some townships in the county, and see what ways we could get, with this new kind of county government structure, if there's ways that we could facilitate, help cooperation among among the cities and other governmental forms in Cuyahoga County. Includes school boards as well. As you know, there's 30-plus school boards in the Cuyahoga County. So we've been working since roughly mid-March. We've had meetings almost every month, a little bit more than that. We've probably been averaging 3.5 week meetings. And most of the other co-chairs are Senator Nina Turner and Mayor Bruce Akers from Pepper Pike. But we've had a good kind of group of mayors and suburban activists who've been attending the meetings who kind of been helping us think through, all right, how do you even structurally talk about collaboration, government collaboration, and where do you even look at? Because there's so many different cities, there's so many different types of things that cities do and school districts do. What are the things you can even talk about when you're talking about collaboration? So one of the first things we wanted to do was just try not to reinvent the wheel. There have been instances in the county where folks in the last 10 years have looked at what are kind of the instances that exist where people have started sharing services. So we kind of talked about this, so let's not reinvent the wheel, let's see what's happened already. We put together some studies of studies, basically, that have already taken place in the county. One has been done by the Northern Ohio City Councils Association. They did a study of just inventory of stuff, basically, that cities had and services that they administered in their cities. And they put together kind of a pretty comprehensive, this is 6 or 7 years old now, but it was at least a good kind of inventory of things that cities had and kind of organized it in a fashion that seemed to make sense. So I think one of the things that we're going to recommend for this new county council and new county executive is to take a look at this, at least the fashion of how this survey was done and reinstitute it once the new government takes effect. Because the organization of it was pretty effective, we thought, and it looked at the fire engines, it looked at EMS services, it looked at snow removal, where people got their snow removal, their salt from, things like that. How many people they had in the back office doing, tax collection or kind of just different elements of accounting within each city governmental entity. So it was a good kind of quality list, we thought, of kind of just different instances of where cities should be sharing and could potentially be sharing in the future. And I should say that out of this, Senator Turner is obviously a senator in Ohio, Senate. I'm a state rep. One of the things we've tried to do as we've been meeting is think, well, is there legislation that we're going to need to make things work better? And one of the things that we do know is that we are going to need legislation, and both Senator Turner and I have introduced legislation that would allow for cities to share services. So one instance is that the city of, City of South Euclid was interested in having the city of Cleveland bid on its snow removal services. Right now, there's no permissive authority within the Ohio legislature to allow for cities to do that, to bid on other cities' services. So we've introduced legislation. We're going to see where it goes. We're in recess now till November, the end of November right now. Not sure where it'll go this General Assembly, but hopefully we're going to try to push something in the next General Assembly that will allow cities to work together to be able to collaborate and bid on other city services. So that was kind of a major component of some of the work we've done. It's just identifying who else has identified kind of elements that could be shared between cities. We have a list, and I'm going to go through this somewhat briefly, but we put together a list of about 11 items, and I think they're going to be messed around with and collapsed to some degree. But we wanted to do at least a set of deliverables that we thought that the new county council should take up and the county executive should take up in next year. So one is have an inventory of all communities showing the various areas of cooperation with other communities. So right now some communities are doing some cooperation. There's fire districts or EMS districts in the county. I know right now there's a number of cities that are looking to do special improvement districts, which would allow for energy efficiency work to go forward, which I think is really an important thing. I think this is probably hopefully it'll be one of our major elements that we think that comes out of this. But we think that the new county executive should appoint a point person, basically a cabinet level position, who's basically his job or her job is going to be to identify all the different elements of government that are going on and all the different levels of government and try to think through, all right, Brook Park, you've got this camera that you can go in and look at the sewer systems. There's 3 other cities around you that don't have anything like that. Maybe there's a way we can have, you share with them, right? So there needs to be someone who's going to be just kind of on top of this all the time, who's thinking about what cities have in terms of inventory and what can be shared with cities that may not have that. So I think that's a major priority that we want our new executive to have. We want to, there's been a lot of work, especially among the mayors and managers associations and city council associations around revenue sharing. And there are, there's some legalistic kind of issues that still have to be solved, but we think that the county executive really needs to devote some time and energy into looking into revenue sharing within the county and outside the county. One of the more interesting ideas that's going on is this kind of 16 county revenue sharing of revenue above and beyond either property tax or sales tax dollars that are currently collected. And so money would be put into a kind of a trust fund and then used for economic development in the future. We think that we think the county executive should be really investigating this and helping with kind of the legal intellectual work that has to take place because there's legislation that's going to have to get passed in order for that to be accomplished. We wanted to make sure that that there was a study done kind of based along the Northern Ohio City Council Association's inventory of collaborative relationships, the stuff that already exists, that inventory that already exists. We want to explore areas where more collaboration can generate greater efficiencies and reduce costs, such as healthcare, IT work, recycling, purchasing, multi-governmental email system. One thing that the county is doing very well that we think that there's hopefully will be a model for kind of moving forward is they've got a pretty good handle on healthcare costs, and they want to encourage cities to kind of buy into their healthcare system using both Metro and their ability basically to negotiate based on the number of employees they have. It makes sense for Brook Park or Paramount Heights or Cleveland or many other cities to maybe to buy in with the county in terms of saving on healthcare costs. So the counties, I think I don't know if they've introduced this yet or not, but I know that it's one of the things that I think that they've been leading the way on, and I think we really want to encourage cities and school districts, to be honest with you, to look at that. We wanted to resurrect the Mayor's and Manager's Economic Development White Paper, which calls for the establishment of an economic development fund. This kind of goes hand in hand with this revenue sharing, and to help finance the refurbishment of obsolete properties in order to attract new business. We've obviously got a bunch of old warehouses, factories, and kind of buildings in the county that need help or need to be torn down or need to be reused in some fashion. So there's, and this is, this was something that we've both had kind of city advocates and, kind of suburban activists, mayors all say, we've got these properties that are sitting there vacant and abandoned. We need to figure out how to reuse them. And with the land bank we've got in Cuyahoga County, which is really a great tool, there was really a lot of talk about how do we collaborate with the land bank, how do we get some money into the land bank for economic redevelopment of these new properties. The other thing, and there's labor issues, obviously. Each city has their own kind of labor unions and labor contracts, and I think one of the things that, frankly, as I've talked to labor union officials and cities, I think that to the degree that there can be better, kind of efficiencies in doing labor negotiations between police and fire, or just kind of the regular workforce that's going out and picking up trash or doing, just basic labor work, that is something that needs to be investigated by this new county council and county executive. That, maybe it's, standardizing how contracts, or language in contracts, or, trying to diminish the amount as possible, being able, having, hundreds of lawyers working on hundreds of contracts throughout the county. So I think that kind of being able to, I think we're still working on a lot of this stuff. We've still got a couple more meetings set up, and hopefully by the end of August we'll have this all in kind of one data plan. But we think that there certainly are a number of things that can be inventoried, can be compared, and we're hoping at the end of the day we'll be able to advocate. We'll have a person in county government who's thinking about this all the time, who's going to be saying, you guys need to be working with these guys over here because they have that, right? And so we I think that we think there's plenty of opportunities. There certainly are plenty of opportunities, and at least my sense of working with the mayors that we've been working with, there's a lot of hunger for this as well, because people want to save money as much as they can. So, with that, I'll sit down and I'll take questions after the next presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Foley. Before we bring up our next group of speakers, and actually I want to invite them to feel free to take a seat at the table there, and I do believe there's a cordless mic available for them, and we will entertain questions and answers for both presentations immediately following their presentation. I did want you all to also note Dr. Jeff Brutney in the back, another committee member who I didn't mention earlier. He has in his hands an exit survey, and we would really encourage you to take a few minutes and complete that survey. It's only through the feedback that we get from you that we learn how to do better with these and to present the kinds of presentations that you would hope to see when you take time out of your busy schedules to come out. So please, before you leave, fill those out. There's 2 boxes here on the 2 chairs to my left that you can simply drop those in, and we really would appreciate that. So we will move on to the Information Technology Work Group. I did want to introduce Bill Blousy, is it?
Yeah.
Bill is a CIO at Eaton Corporation, one of our region's finest companies, and he is the private sector co-chair of this particular work group. And joining him are both John Hunter and Tom Basco, who happen both work for ISC, which is the technology division or arm of the county. So they will update you on their work, and gentlemen, take it away.
I just want to pile on Representative Foley to what you said with regards to kind of services that we can share in the county. Certainly information technology is one we feel is an asset we can leverage. And it's already happening to some extent with the team regarding network infrastructure. So I think a lot of great ideas, and we feel IT is another one that could be leveraged even more broadly. I didn't mention Dan Weaver. Dan is actually the IT director for the county, and he's really my co-chair on the team. And Dan conveniently is on vacation this evening, right? So in any case, Tom and John have been instrumental in really helping work through and identify some of the opportunities that we've, I think, really discovered within the IT organization and the function itself and opportunities. Kind of the way I'd like to walk through this, I just want to kind of set the stage with regards to how we thought about the IT issues overall, kind of broadly. Talk a little bit about the task force that we've commissioned. We had several subcommittees that we commissioned to really help identify what we should be doing. You know, you're looking at a big organization, really trying to identify where to focus the energy, similar to all the groups, to be honest. And I want to talk a little bit about the process that we walked through as an organization with regards to how we approach the problem. I'm going to share some observations and findings. Those are going to be pretty hard to read, I think, with regards to the group out here, so I'll walk through those very quickly. Talk quickly about what we think the recommendations are going to be, very similar to the prior group. and then just talk quickly about what the next steps are. So hopefully that'll give you a sense for kind of where the team is at overall, the progress we've made, and what's in front of us. And I think we have made some pretty good progress overall. Just a reminder, I mean, certainly IT plays into the broader charter of really trying to improve efficiency, save dollars, and reinvest back into driving growth and jobs in the county. I mean, that's the overall charter for the transition groups. And when we thought about that from an IT perspective, I don't know who's got the controller or the flipper here, we really boiled that down to two things, really around driving efficiencies. And the way to think about that within information technology is it's really standardize, simplify, and make things common. That's kind of our number one principle that guided what the IT group was doing. The second piece was, are there things we can do to improve services to county constituents? What kinds of things can we do to help improve service? You know, if we save some dollars, maybe we invest back in, frankly, improving services in the county as well. So the way we approached it is we essentially formed 7 subcommittees. The subcommittees were made up of volunteers in the community, as well as representatives from what we call ISC, the Central IT Organization for the county. The teams are listed here, really around 7 areas: understanding the organization or the people, understanding the different systems or applications we run, understanding the different infrastructure, hardware, all the components of that. We also had some special teams that worked on network review, kind of looking at our infrastructure from a network perspective, a specific item on a PC review where there are different ways we could save costs and how we're looking at PCs, how we're looking at printers, and even faxes. And then finally we had one that was frankly tied right into the last team around other community services. Could we leverage IT infrastructure, IT capabilities more broadly across the county? And then finally we had one around governance. Who controls the budget? Who controls the funding? How do things get approved? Where does the CIO sit in the organization? That was really our final team. Here's what we asked the teams to do. We really asked them for a couple things. First of all, get the lay of the land. You know, what is our as-is situation? Understand what we have. Because without really understanding what we have today, we can't decide where to go next. So that was job number 1 for each of our teams, especially the first 3 teams that I mentioned. The other thing we asked them to do was do a SWOT analysis. Basically a strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats analysis, with the key being for us, the opportunities. You know, we wanted the teams, the joint teams between the volunteers and the IT organization, to really come up with some opportunities for saving dollars or improving services, if you go back to kind of our initial 2 principles that we had. So what I thought I'd do, and really we also asked the team to prioritize those opportunities. What I thought I'd do, because the teams have done some great work, frankly they've made more progress than I thought they would have at this point. I wanted to share some of the observations and some of the findings from those teams, and share a little bit about what we saw as we brought that information together, because I think it's quite enlightening. And it really starts to point out the different opportunities that we have and how we might think about information technology differently in the county. So just a comment here, there's about 192 people in IT. More than half of them are outside of the central IT organization. So there's about 95 or so that are centralized in Dan Weaver's organization. The rest are spread around the different agencies and departments. So a pretty mixed bag between what's centralized and what isn't. For that reason, the budget is also distributed that way. And everybody knows those who control the budget control what it gets spent on as well. So about half of the dollars in the total county IT budget, if you were to lump it all together, which frankly took a while to get an understanding of, to be honest, because it's spread out in so many places, about half of it is outside in the different agencies and half is in the central IT organization. The other thing is that many of the other functions, whether you look at application development, so as you know, all the things you use on the web. If you've ever been to the county website, those kinds of activities are done very decentralized, and what I'll say is in an inconsistent fashion. And that's the theme here. Again, remember what I said earlier: simplify, standardize, and drive commonality. Really, the way applications are built, the way they're bought, is very decentralized and inconsistent across the different agencies. And I thought I'd share some probably unreadable graphs, to be honest, that a couple of our teams put together about the particular applications and kind of the footprint overall. If you look at the color wheel, each one of those is kind of a core process. So it might be budgeting, it might be time and attendance. It's something that we do kind of in the back office in our different agencies. You can't really read it very well, but each number there is the number of different ways we're doing that particular function with different systems. So for instance, we might do time and attendance, you know, recording people's time, when are they on vacation, etc. We might do that 9 different ways. We might have 9 different computer applications that govern and manage time and attendance. We have multiple ways of doing payroll. We have multiple ways of doing budgeting. And you can kind of see where this is going. Well, that probably doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to do it multiple ways. And frankly, it doesn't make sense to do it multiple ways across the county. There are opportunities if we get a platform that we could leverage across the county. Yeah, I'm sorry, just a couple other quick comments there. The other piece is that the applications are generally not, I said integrated, not tied together well. You know, budgeting to the general ledger, those things usually, you know, tie quite tightly. That's not necessarily the case here because our applications are so diverse and spread across different environments in the actual different organizations. To kind of couple on with that, or in a similar fashion, the support models, you know, how we actually provide support from the IT organization for the different systems, the different applications. There's no real common model there. Sometimes it's the internal IT organization and Dan Weaver's central organization. Sometimes it's an agency IT organization. Sometimes it's outsourced. And there's just different models with, you don't really get a sense for what the strategy is about supporting the key applications in the county. Probably the most interesting point from my perspective, and the one that has, I think, really got us thinking about whether this makes sense, is we continue to invest in this diverse environment. So it's kind of like we have this mix of systems, not necessarily tied together well, and we keep trying to improve them and upgrade them. It probably isn't the best approach. It might be better just to say, stop all that, look for a single environment that services the county and invest there. Stop adding down a hole, so to speak, and instead create an environment that we invest in, that we can leverage across the county as a common organization. Let me just talk about infrastructure. I just think some of the stats are interesting here. I'll just whiz through the stats, which is the top bullet up there. I don't know if you know what a server is, but a server runs the applications from the prior slides. We have about 490 servers in the organization. Well, that's quite a few, to be honest, for an organization with 8,000 people in it. And the other point is that about 40% of them are outside the central data center. So again, thinking about how we manage equipment, you know, you really want all that stuff together. You want it together in a single location on the fewest number of machines possible, and frankly, drive down support costs and make things the same. 6,300 or so PCs, 6,400 PCs. Again, the color wheel is different brands. Dell, HP, so you can see we do have a predominant brand in HP, but frankly, you don't need more than one. They ought to all be HPs, and if we had a consistent procurement process that said we're going to buy HP machines, this standard framework, that's really ideally what we would do, and not have even any colors on that wheel other than one. And finally, the one that's maybe most striking with regards to what we've deployed in the county and maybe an opportunity for us is we have over 3,100 printers. Well, there's only 8,000 people, so we almost have one printer for every 2 people. And many of you know in your work environments, you have multifunction centralized printers. So this is an opportunity for us to consolidate into a single print environment, a few larger printers, instead of really putting what appears to be one on about everybody's desk at this point. Those are just some quick stats, some things we learned. The teams, as I said, did a fantastic job kind of pulling that information together. Here's some summary bullets. I'll just run through these quickly. No kind of IT strategy to govern overall decision making. As I mentioned, you can see it in the results here. Decentralized decision making, not kind of a consistent approach across all the different agencies and departments. Uh-oh, it's one of my kids texting me. And I think the way to say that is the IT organization structure today sub-optimizes the resources. They're not working in a consistent fashion because they're split between different agencies in the central organization. We have an approval board called the ADP that approves IT investments today. It's the Automatic Data Processing Board, right? I didn't screw that. Yeah. So, but in any case, they approve funding requests, but frankly, they don't really debate anything. It has generally become an approval process that goes through, so you don't get a consistent approach on solving the problem. And I think that's probably good enough. We can hop ahead in the interest of time. So the bottom line is, here's the implications. It generally creates a higher cost of IT to operate given the way it's structured today, the way the organization's structured, and the way we buy and support applications and equipment. We're really not taking advantage of economies of scale. And it frankly probably creates inefficiencies in the other departments because they don't have an integrated system. They don't have an integrated back office system, and that makes it tougher to provide services to county constituents as well. And we may have some cases where we potentially have unacceptable risk levels. Now, we don't have a disaster recovery plan in the county. If we were to lose the data center today, we would lose some essential services because there are key services running out of the data center. And we have to think about whether investment there is warranted instead of maybe investing in some of the applications that we're investing in today. So here's our recommendations. As Representative Foley said, there's certain things that we think make sense. And generally, this is our list around a single IT organization, much more effective governance about what we do buy and why to drive that consistency. Establish, publish, and enforce infrastructure and architecture standards. We have to have some standards that we build upon as an organization and enforce those across the county. Immediately stop new investments in this kind of big mix of applications that we have. That will be one of the recommendations, that we stop investing in what we have and step back and just say, is that the right thing to do, and potentially look at an alternative integrated solution. And then extend, again, the community service model, extend network and data center operations potentially more broadly in the county to different municipalities or whatever we think makes sense. So we're in the kind of final phases here. We're continuing to gather and refine the inventory. The teams continue to work through that. We have to make our final recommendations to the team and really kind of prioritize those. And we're really shooting for the end of July, given the schedule that we have overall with the transition committee to make that happen. I know there was a lot of kind of detail, to be honest, with regards to where we are, but hopefully you get a sense for, frankly, the work the teams have done in understanding kind of the lay in the land and then giving us some ideas for where we go next and the opportunities we might have. So, questions, or how do you want to handle it, Randy?
Just a few ground rules. You can open mic. I can speak loudly.
Okay.
I would just ask the audience to state your name before commenting. There will be a 2-minute limit per person. Dr. Brennan will be our timekeeper, so if you see him wave a 30-second card, that means you have 30 seconds left. We would like to give everyone an opportunity to speak before we start doubling up and giving second turns. We would like to ask you to focus your comments or your questions on the topics at hand tonight, not necessarily the overall county process, and bombard these gentlemen with questions that they're not prepared to answer. And again, keep an eye out for the timekeeper. If you are uncomfortable asking questions, you can write your questions down, and we'd be happy to read those for you. So that's another option that you have. So with that, first question. Yes, sir.
Paul Daly. What I'd like to know is, do you have available?
Can you go to the microphone, sir? So they can hear you on the camera.
My name is Paul Daly. What I'd like to know is, do you have available hard copies of your list of priorities and recommendations to distribute as tonight?
I did not bring hard copies along, but I'm sure we can put them out on the website. Absolutely. The presentation will be on the website for sure. And we can make them available out there.
It's already on the website. You can find it there.
The county website?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
The charter website.
The charter.
The charter website, yeah.
My name is Linda Barley. This is for the IT group. Have you looked at other regions of the country where they have engaged in this kind of intensive IT rethinking of governmental services? If so, what did you find? What kind of investment did it take at the front end? How much was recouped by selling off some of the equipment currently on hand? And then at the back end, what could be gained in actual ongoing costs?
Yep, I can take a shot at that. And it's a great question with regards to kind of what are the benefits of the recommendations. So let me take the back end of your question first. We are in the process of really trying to assess the recommendations that we're making and what are the benefits. I mean, we generally know, but we need to put a little more granularity to that, frankly, so we have solid recommendations to the new county executives. So that is something we've got to go through yet. With regards to other counties, we personally talked to 2 other counties that have been through similar exercises. We talked to Allegheny County, the IT organizations, and we talked to the county that Louisville is in, which it's been like 3 or 4 months ago, and the name is escaping me, but they went through a very similar process, Louisville, Kentucky. I would say the way to characterize those discussions is they each had very similar recommendations, and we actually had reports that they recommended and what they started to implement to what we designed here in general terms. Standardize, simplify, change the structure of the organization, and then drive out appropriate cost and improve the services thereof. So their recommendations, if you read the reports, they're very similar. And the other thing I might say about the discussions with those individuals is that their ability to actually execute on their initial recommendations versus what they thought the timing was going to be has been a lot slower. So even though they had similar recommendations, similar ideas, I don't think I ever saw any of them that had concrete benefits identified. Neither one did. But I think in general, I would characterize their progress to date against what they thought they could do has been slow, although they've made significant progress. It's been slower than expected. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, but hopefully it gives you some understanding that we did have some of those conversations. I don't know, guys, is there anything you care to add there?
John Hunter with the ISC. As far as your question on selling off equipment and things of that nature, it's still all in use. As a county in general, we exceed the normal lifespan of a server or a PC. We will continue that practice going forward. So by the time it reaches that stage, we have several programs within the county that we donate that to then be recycled and serviced, or we take a trade-in value on new equipment.
Okay, next
Also-
question?
Mary Denahan, and I actually work for Child Support Enforcement. We are under the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, and I know we have some other Job and Family Services agencies there, and we're all thinking our computers are supplied by the state of Ohio, as are our printers and our servers, and yet we are linked into the county. When you were looking at this, my assumption is, I just like clarification, that you don't want to buy any more computers than you have to buy. And I'm hoping just for you to clarify that.
Yeah, we definitely recognize that your organization and agency is actually on the environments of the state. And so that is a bit of a different dynamic with that regard. There probably are still opportunities to think about how we bring the organization together to either support the applications or how we build applications as well. So I think that's probably the opportunity there. It's not on the hardware side because you're running on the state network and you're running on the state's computers. John? Yeah, that's a great point. We actually have one of the state deputy CIOs, Christian Selch, is part of our team, and he's attended several of our volunteer meetings and has supported us with insight into the state IT operations and helped us look for leverage points between the county and the state as well. So he's been critical with regards to having kind of that view into the state operations and looking for other places that we can leverage off of each other.
Mr. Byrne, you want to come on up? Nikki, you can come up.
Adrian Byrne from Rocky River. I have a question for Senator Foley. With the whole process of looking for the opportunities for the different cities and organizations within the cities to collaborate, what is in the plans to hold the new leadership of the county's feet to the fire in terms of following through on these suggestions and recommendations?
I don't know that we've developed any holding your feet to the fire recommendations yet. It's a good idea. I think that I guess the response to that is that cities don't have as much money as they used to have, right? They don't have the tax base coming in. The county doesn't have the tax base coming in. The state doesn't have the tax base coming in. I mean, one of my concerns this coming year is that we've got potentially a $7 to $8 billion shortfall at the state level that we're going to have to figure out how to make up in some respects. A lot of that money goes down to local governments, and local governments may take a hit this next coming year. So in some respects, I don't think that there's any choice but for cities to start working together and sharing services and sharing resources in a better way. I think what we're trying to do is just help identify at least where some of those, I don't want to say low-hanging fruit because I don't think any of this stuff is low-hanging. It's complicated, right? Just how you measure, how you quantify things. But I think identifying areas where communities can cooperate and coordinate their services, their resources to move forward. Because I just don't think there's going to be much choice. And I do want to say before but Nikki Antonio is here, who's the city councilwoman from Lakewood, who's going to be my colleague next year at the State House. She just won her race and will be joining me next year. So she's going to have to be dealing with this stuff at the state level too, with this $8 billion shortfall, and how do we deal with local governments. And she's been a great advocate at the local level and trying to think through how do you do things cooperatively. So I just want to make sure people knew she was here.
That's a great introduction.
Thank you. And my question, one more person reminds me of. Thank you for the reminder. My name is Nikki Antonio, and I am a resident of Lakewood. And I am also a former county employee. And for 2 years, I worked in a federally funded program housed within the county. And so it had its own special quirks about it in terms of how we purchased our equipment. And one of the things we needed to think about, and I don't know how much this applies across the board, was the use of the technology. We had some folks, I was one of them within the office, that a laptop made more sense because while I could use it in the office, I also needed to go out into the field. And so as you're looking at economies of scale and ways of really economizing how the equipment is used, that was one of my comments, questions, just in terms of really looking at how the equipment is used and the places where they can do multifunction, but it's one piece of equipment. The other was, I'm hoping that one of the things we see with this process, and I'd like to know what you've looked at in terms of upgrade. I like to bring in a company with me when I ask my questions. If you've looked at, or what you can say about the whole software issues around, because all of the software within each department is very different, different makes, models, years, and as far as standardizing some of that across the board. Thank you.
The short answer is yes. We have looked at that, and we've had some earlier slides and some presentations internally within our IT group that will make its way into the report. And one of those was, in fact, looking at really 3 levels of IT applications. You have infrastructure IT applications that are straightforward. They're at the core, hardware standardization, network standardization, single communication platform, whether that be email, faxes, printing, those type of things. Then you have what we call a ubiquitous application layer. Those are what Bill was referring to as your back office things. We want to make those as standard across the board as possible. What those are, there's been no determinations. What areas we can utilize that in, we're not sure. But we understand that there's the tip of the iceberg is the specialty applications. And those are specifically for specific functions. Those just aren't going to go away, whether they are to federal mandated, state mandated programs, things of that nature. The coroner's office, there's not a whole lot of use for some of their programming throughout the county. And those will be specialty, but instead of the pyramid being flipped over, which is what you've seen, where there's very little standardized, we kind of want to take more of an iceberg approach where 80% of it is underwater and you don't see it, and the rest is kind of above water. And then as far as utilization, better utilization of equipment, things like that, we are looking at things, and whether that be virtualization of desktops, reutilization of different equipment, better utilization of certain equipment formats. We're looking at that, whether it would be handheld devices or things of that way. Not only are we looking at it from an IT standpoint, we're looking at it from an efficiency of work standpoint also to drive certain costs.
Also on the hardware, we want to consolidate and focus on particular brands as opposed to so many that can help in getting discounts and support. The other objective too is not to say just the same PC for everybody. There would be probably 2 or 3 different models that we would zero in on, depending on the type of need that the various folks would have, as well as laptops where needed. So we wouldn't lose sight of those different needs.
Please come forward.
My name is Madeline Brookshire, and I'm a resident of North Olmsted. And I first want to commend you for the work of your teams and for sharing all the detail with us tonight. Both of your presentations were just excellent, and I want to thank you for that. But I want to build on what one of the other gentlemen asked about, and that is what mechanism will be put in place to ensure, every one of the teams are going to have great recommendations. What guarantees do the residents of this county have that things are going to get done in a timely manner and that things are going to get communicated to the public, and we're not going to be dependent on the plain dealer to leak us little bits of information? So I think one of the things we need is some kind of an oversight panel to see that things get actually done. And secondly, that there are either public forums or standard public communications to residents so that we know that things are really changed. So we don't want to wait till the next election to throw the bums out, okay? So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
I think it's a great suggestion. I know one of the charters we have, the idea is to come up with the top 50 items. Well, that sounds like a lot. I mean, that's still a lot of suggestions coming to the new executive, the council, et cetera. But the intent is to hone in on the most important things out of each area. But I think your suggestion is a good one with regards to how you monitor it as well.
And then out of the IT committee specifically, because that's what I can speak to, and I'm going to put Bill on the spot a little, but I know one of these suggestions or one of the wishes we have as county employees coming out of specifically in the IT area is we've asked Bill to take some thought into giving us some names and some recommendations for an outside oversight committee from an IT perspective that we'd like to put in place that maybe meets 3 times a year, maybe quarterly, that are some of the top IT strategic minds and run what we're doing past them going forward.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Don Schiavione, and I'm the latest independent candidate for county executive. And I'm attending these meetings so that I can learn what the great work that's going on here. But my business is healthcare software, so I have 2 questions here. One for Representative Foley, having to do with the healthcare plan that the county has, and how ready we are to scale that and roll it out. And if we did that county-wise, what are the potential savings to the local governments? And then to the IT people, you talked about the diversity, the wide range of applications, but what about getting a little bit technical, touching on the database managers that are behind all these applications? I understand that sort of we are an Oracle house in the county. How relative to Microsoft SQL Server, what's the proportion there? And then what I've found in talking to people who are in the county, that there isn't a software issue having to do with mandated applications from the state and the federal government that actually are causing a lot of havoc because locally we have, they're telling me we have good applications, and then these things are imposed and it's double entry, et cetera, and comment on that. Thank you.
Okay, just starting off on the healthcare. We had a report from the county in, I think it was March or April. They felt that they thought by the end of summer, they were going to be able to kind of roll this out to the municipalities in the county and say, all right, guys, come on, you can buy in now. I have not talked to them since then, but it seemed like it was pretty, they were ready to go, right? And I know that they, look, I was impressed. I was seriously impressed with the cost savings that could have been accomplished. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but they seem to have their act together. And it was, I gotta say, it's one of the things I was thinking about this. As we've kind of gone through the last 2 or 3 years of scandal and problems in the county, the guys who were working on this really did have their act together. They knew what they were doing, and they were doing good work. It seemed to me. It was what the county should be doing and should be accomplishing. So I was confident that this is going to happen soon. And what we can do is I can talk to the county. Maybe we can put at least get a description of that up on the webpage so that folks know when and where that'll be rolled out.
Well, I manage the database group group is one of the groups I manage, so I can speak specifically to your database question. The county really has three main flavors of database. We have SQL Server, we have Oracle, and we have DB2. DB2 is mainly tied to the mainframe. It has a lot of the financial applications tied to it, as well as the human services side of that. The Oracle side has the real property system, so everything having to do with property. It has a judicial side. It has the GIS, which is the Geographical Information System, data on it. So it's our larger data, many more transactions, more robust database. And then the SQL Server we use for a lot of web development and smaller applications. Did that get all your questions?
The issue with mandated state and federal applications.
I believe Children and Family Services is the latest agency that has cut over to a state application. From my understanding, they had hoped to have a system that they had developed here be accepted by the state, and that didn't happen. So consequently, the system they got from the state was not quite as robust as what they had felt they needed. So they've had to add other things around that, I think, enhancements to that application. And I know they're working with the state to get some things improved with that application. I don't know that we don't or won't get applications from the state, and that will continue, I believe. So that's probably something that will have to continue to be worked on. That's maybe one of those unique things, more unique things in that pyramid that we built.
I think there'll be more collaboration. The deputy CIO of the state of Ohio has been pretty active. I know the state of Ohio is willing to talk more. So I think maybe we'll have some more input. Hopefully this will drive some more collaboration. A lot of this talk didn't happen before because, quite frankly, if you had your own funding source, you did what you wanted and then you pushed it down. That everyone is tight with money, and so collaboration is something that's working. I know there are, from an IT perspective, we've been recognized nationally several times with grants and various things that we're doing that are very progressive throughout the country. So we plan on continuing that. We're pushing collaborative services wherever we can. That's one of the mandates we've had probably for the last 3 years going forward.
Just one quick comment. I guess maybe the way I would characterize it, I think there's clear cases where there are unique applications mandated by the state, for instance, and that's, as Tom said, that's going to continue. I think what we want to make sure doesn't happen is that we allow that to be pervasive across other systems and applications where it isn't necessary, and that is happening today. There's many cases where we don't need variability, we don't have to have the variability, there's no reason for it, and it happens. And so that's the piece we can still go after, and it's a significant piece of the way the county operates today.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Palmer from Westlake. My questions are more of another shared service, human resources. Much easier to standardize computers than it is people. So my question is about what about the benefit plans or union contracts or things like just basics operating procedures? Is the thought that you would standardize some of that or maybe leave those in place as they are, or what's kind of the approach from a human resources point of view?
Can you hear me? Okay. So obviously, the county cannot force any city to standardize or what its labor contracts look like, or so the idea is to encourage and try to develop as much cooperation as possible. And one of our recommendations, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but one of our recommendations was that the county should have someone who's thinking about this all the time, who's working directly for the executive, whose job it is to think through, all right, what is Brooks Park, Parma Heights, Middleburg Heights, they're all share, kind of West 130th Pearl Road area. What are some things they can share, in terms of both, equipment, resources, but then also, is there better ways that they can share personnel and utilities? There's labor issues involved in that, right? And someone's going to have to be smart in figuring out how to deal with that stuff. One of the things when we, Senator Turner and I introduced legislation last month, which I don't know where it's going to go, but we both introduced it both in the Senate and the House, which would allow for cities to bid on other cities' work. And there's labor issues that go, CERB issues, and just contract issues. And so those are things they're going to have to, smart people who do this stuff on a day-to-day basis, are going to have to be involved in to think through, how to manage some of those issues. But I think it's in, it's in, as we talked about earlier, it's in municipality self-interest to start sharing resources and sharing, human capital, as you called it, with each other. I think it's in labor self-interest at the end of the day to make sure that there's this coordinated kind of a labor force in this county as possible, who they represent. We've got just instances of cities laying off people right and left, and I don't know that it helps labor in the long run. So I think that there's both kind of on both sides of the employment equation. There's interest and thoughts about what do we do to kind of make sure that at the end of the day we've got a labor force that is as coordinated as possible, recognizing we've got 50 plus cities and 30 something plus school districts and all the other levels of government that we have. And so we think that at least one thing we need to have is one person or two people, kind of a department within county government who's helping coordinate and helping think about that.
Better have more than one or two.
3 or 4.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Rosenberger?
Good evening. My name is Ray Rosenberger. I'm from Parma. I have 3 questions. I think the first 2 are relatively easy. To the CIO for the county, who do you currently report to?
Well, the CIO is on vacation, so I'm not the
okay.
CIO. But currently, the CIO of the county or our organization, the central organization, is appointed by the auditor's office.
Appointed by the auditors.
And then approved by the Automated Data Processing Board.
And-
And that's by statute in the state of Ohio.
Mhm.
That was determined, so that's where it lies now. As a central IT agency,
Mhm.
we actually don't report to the CIO. We report to the Automated Data Processing Board, which is made up of 7 members.
Okay, that takes care of part of the next question. The last question I have is, with regards to systems and computers, they often get confused. They really don't have anything to do with one another. You first have a system and a process, and then you may use automation to implement or complement it. When the new city council county council takes office, and I'm just going to give you a hypothetical and you can explain to me how this might unfold in summary form. They decide that they need a complaint system, a countywide complaint system. Would your area be involved in the design of that system from a systems point of view? And again, not from a technology point of view, but from a systems point of view. And if you were involved, how would that project work? How would you get the project assigned? How would it be prioritized? And how would the follow-up be managed?
Since it's a hypothetical, I can give you what my thoughts are, This isn't necessarily the thoughts of the CIO, the organization, or anyone else, but I'll give you my thoughts, if that works. One, I'll put the stipulation in that the new transition government would take the suggestions of the IT group and have a strong central CIO. So that's the number one assumption we'll make under that. And with that structure, there will be a principal architect that will look at it. There'll be business analysts assigned. There's many methodologies that are used as standard in IT development. Those would be implemented, whether it was a waterfall approach or it was a step-by-step approach, which would go hand in hand. We would look at our resources from an IT perspective and then see, one, if that's something that could be done in-house or not efficiently, and make that determination. I think along with that, we would look to see what's already out there, because why reinvent the wheel? There's no reason to do that. If there's something there that we can apply, goes back to the principles, I'm going to call them the new founding principles of the new IT structure, which will be standardize, simplify, and become effective and efficient. So we would look at that and then make that determination whether we would develop it, buy it, put in the proper training, then going forward, make that application available in the most effective means possible, whether that would be a web-based tool or whether that would be public or private. Who's going to get those results? What kind of information is needed? Is it going to be a report-heavy based system where you're going to get a lot of data back out, or are you doing a lot of collection of data and internalizing and putting workflows behind it? So those are all standards and principles that are used every day in application development. But to say that it would be internal or external, it's too long.
Okay, but you have a set of standards, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Eaton, I'll speak for Eaton. Eaton very much has a great set of standards that Bill has shared with us, and maybe Bill could elaborate a little on the IT standards.
Yeah, maybe just one thing to add with regards to how you might decide what to work on,
Yes.
which is kind of what your question was. Do you work on the complaint management system? I mean, generally what happens, or you see a lot of in organizations that are trying to set priorities around IT, is there's essentially a portfolio management process. You know, we can do one of 100 things, but based on the cost to get them done and the benefits, the leadership team, some leadership structure prioritizes the initiatives, and they agree that these are the top 5 for the county to focus on. And that would be the best way to drive the investments for the county, is to base it on what investments are we going to make in IT, and what are the benefits on the back end, and what do the county constituents get out of it, or what do we drive from an efficiency perspective. And that's the best way maybe to do the portfolio management process and decide the key initiatives. Today, they're generally decided out of the different agencies, and funding comes out of those agencies. If you pool it and focus on the major ones, that's probably a better way to think about how to drive the most benefits for the entire county.
Thank you.
It's good questions.
Other questions? Going once? Twice? Okay, well, I guess I can use this microphone. And ask you to, yes. Yes, Dr. Brutney is reminding me to remind you that we really want your survey forms. If you would take a minute to complete that if you haven't, and the boxes that you can drop those in are right on the table or in the chair to my left. He's moving them to the table so you can, don't even have to break stride as you walk out, just drop it right in the box.
As you can see from the wrap-up slide here, we certainly will take, as we promised earlier, this information back for further refinement with our respective work groups. We will continue to post these forums online, so we would encourage you to continue to follow and come back and hear other work group presentations as well. They're all quite interesting. Of course, you can visit that website. Someone earlier asked if it was the county website, and we want to make sure you understand it's the charter website, charter@cuyahogacounty.us. Your ongoing engagement is critical. As one of the panelists already said, your questions tonight were outstanding. And this is the kind of buy-in and support and engagement that we always hoped for from a public engagement standpoint. I did want to thank Bill especially, who spent the day with his colleagues doing community service at Eaton Corporation. So he even came down after that and helped us with the forum. So thank you for that. Why don't we give our panelists a round of applause? And is that 1-1 or 1-9? Okay. The Latino Community Forum scheduled for August 26th. The address is 7719 Detroit Avenue. If you received this handout, there might have been a typo there. So if you could change that to 19. We certainly want you to be there, and it'll be a great night. But if there aren't any other closing comments, we talked about the survey forums. I would thank you all again for your time, and have a good evening, and let's go watch the decision.